Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, this episode is going to be released, well, it's going to be released the normal day, but it is being recorded and edited and uploaded to all this stuff, like, before the end of the week. Like, as I'm recording this, it's 11:20 p.m. on Wednesday. That's because it's forced family vacation time. Hooray! Same place, same time, blah, blah, blah. Also, one other thing, if you follow me on Twitter, you may notice there was a tweet that I made, and not a lot of you follow me on Twitter, and even if you do, you don't really pay attention to Twitter. I mean, it's not really that relevant anymore because Twitter is slowly dying, but basically, I posted a tweet where I talked about how there was something that went in my eye, because I was, like, doing some, like, house work, and it was like I went in the attic, checked something, and then when I came back downstairs, there was something in my eye. I did everything I was supposed to, eye drops, washing it out, and then I did a thing where that I really shouldn't have, but it was like I was left with no other option, where I tried to get it out directly, and then it looked like I pushed it in deeper, and it was like, yikes. But then the next morning, my eye was, like, full of mucus and, like, stuff, so it might have came out like that, because it says, like, it's supposed to, like, it can, like, wash out on its own. And then, of course, I did the thing where you go on the internet to figure out what could and possibly can happen in a situation like that, and got always the worst ones. So just FYI, in case I magically disappear off the internet, and then the video that I made in case I die ever comes up, then you know what happened due to that. I mean, for the most part, I think it's fine now. Like, I mean, I currently do not have, like, blurred vision or anything in the sort, and then when I checked it again, that thing did appear to be gone fully. But as a hypochondriac, I keep going in and looking into my eye and then using a flashlight, and then it's like, probably ain't a good idea, but, you know, whatever. So yeah, if I disappear and then the video that I made in case I die ever comes up, then you know what happened. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, we're going to be talking about the Mexican presidential race again, because the first poll that has been conducted since the, candidacies of MORENA has finally finalized, and the results are, for the most part, typical. First, let's just go over how it is for a while. The polls have been, these are, earlier polls, and most of them are pretty simple. And one interesting thing is that Gerardo Fernandez wasn't included in polls up until February 2023, which is odd considering I remember he was one of the early candidates to say that he was definitively running in this upcoming election. But what is interesting is, polls have shifted a little bit, and I'll explain why in a second. But first, let's just get into the candidates. Manuel Velasco Coello, the candidate that was supposed to represent PVEM in the coalition, got dead last with 3.2% of the respondents saying that they would vote for him. Then Ricardo Monreal got 5.5%. Then Gerardo Fernandez got 7%. Then Aiden Augusto Lopez got 16.9%. Then Marcelo Ebrard got 21.4%. And Scheinbaum got an even 33%, which is not really that, hard to suspect. It seemed pretty obvious that was what was going to happen, because, as I said, I've said it before and I said it again, Scheinbaum is going to be the MORENA candidate for president at the very least. She will be that at the very least, if not just fully becoming president, because as polls are being conducted right now, it's looking like an easy MORENA win again. But I will mention one more thing about this presidential election that is somewhat interesting, and it's something that happened when the account America Elects posted a poll that was conducted before the finalization of candidates happened. One major grievance I have with that account is the fact that they don't actually post the results of they post the graphs, but they don't post the actual, links to the polls. That would be greatly useful. But anyways, there were a couple of people asking questions about the candidates in the race, so then I did, a short little mock-up of the candidates, where I basically put all 6 of them on a political spectrum, and just gave, a broad ideological term that I could give them. Gerardo Fernandez is a socialist. I listed Ricardo Monreal as a left socialdem because he has a history of being in radical socialist politics, i.e. the Labour Party, but he's broadly still more of a social democrat. I listed Claudia Sheinbaum, then Aiden Augusto Lopez next, in that order, and, just gave them the ideological label socialdem. Like, they're basically social democrats. Like, everybody basically agrees that those two are the ones that aren't going to stray too far from what AMLO is. Like, they will have differences with AMLO, but they're going to broadly be in the same ideological ilk as AMLO. Meanwhile, Monreal and Gerardo Fernandez, they're more radical than AMLO, I guess. Even though Ricardo Monreal, like, I'll be real, like, technically it would be Monreal, Sheinbaum, and Lopez that are pretty much really close to AMLO ideologically. Then, the next candidate that is to the right of them is Marcelo Ebrard, who I list as a right SOCDEM, and I specifically use the term SOCDEM for him because he is definitely more right-wing than most of the other contenders, with the exception of course, Manuel Velasco Coelho, who's a green conservative. But Ebrard, he was even listed at the time as a, market favorite when he was being pushed to be in AMLO's administration, because he comes from a centrist, party and a centrist ilk. He represented the more rightward faction in the PRD when he and AMLO vied for their nomination back in 2012. While yes, he's still broadly a social democrat, he'd probably be more in line with, say, a European social democrat than, social democrats in, America or something. To use Twitter emojis to define their candidates, Noronha would be a red flag, a Monreal would be a rose. I would guess that Sheinbaum and Lopez would also be roses. Maybe they would also have, the sock emoji. Marcelo Ebrard would be, a sock and globe. And Velasco, a sunflower and a globe? I don't know. But what's interesting is that, a couple of days after I posted that, not just a couple of days, the next day after I posted that, the official MORENA account posted a graphic of the candidates, and they list them in almost the exact same order. Noronha and Monreal are put on the left, Marcelo Ebrard and Velasco put to the right, and Sheinbaum and Lopez are in the middle. The only exception is that they put Lopez and Sheinbaum, they flip them. But, broadly, I think, they're basically the same. They put them in the same groupings that I put them in, which is, I don't know if that's a subtle hint, because I can't actually read what the graphic says, so maybe it's just them blatantly stating the ideological leanings of their candidates, so I don't know. But what I do know is something interesting in Japan. Remember when Taro Yamamoto tried to, essentially beat up and, get the attention of the rightward people who were trying to push for this far-right refugee agenda? Well, turns out Reiwa Shinsengumi and Taro Yamamoto will not be facing any repercussions from this thing, and it's due to somewhat leftist unity, because what ended up happening is that when the debate was to be held about the punishment that they would face, the entire Communist Party of Japan just basically said, no, we are not going to participate in this. There will be no punishment. And due to that deadlock, they can't do anything. So Taro Yamamoto will be going unpunished. And I read the article, and it didn't mention the Social Democratic Party of Japan. So it's very tragic that they've basically decided to officially choose to be unbased. And the Constitutional Democratic Party is still broadly in the not neoliberal, but not even the Washington Consensus. It's hard to describe, but you know what I mean. The circle of mainstream ideas. So yeah, I'm definitely on board with this. Left unity in Japan. Maybe the Communist Party and Taro Yamamoto can officially negotiate an actual bloc within the legislature. Maybe the one or two social democratic people can get in on that too. That'll probably be the closest thing we'll get to left unity in Japan. But anyways, let's move on to the next story. This one is not very cash money for Pride Month. New figures reveal scope of military discrimination against LGBTQ troops. As we all know, the LGBTQ and the military have not necessarily gotten along. The U.S. military having a long-standing history of discrimination against their gay and lesbian and transgender members. Originally, you couldn't be allowed to even enter if, like, it was part of the military test, like, oh, are you gay? And then if you checked yes, they just be like, nope, sorry, no thank you. But then Bill Clinton entered the scene, and one of the big things that he ran on was trying to make sure that the LGBTQ could serve in the military. And instead of just repealing the law that said that gay people could serve in the military, he said, if we don't ask you if you're gay, you won't tell us that you're gay. Which, of course, led to the infamous policy, don't ask, don't tell, where gay people were still forbidden from entering the military, but if they just didn't tell anybody they were gay, they were allowed to enter. A law that didn't end up getting repealed until 2010. And many people were trying to figure out for a long time how many members of the military were actually kicked out of the military for being openly gay due to this policy. And what they discovered was that 35,801 people received a discharge or separation because of real or perceived homosexuality, homosexual conduct, sexual perversion, or any other related reason from the period of October 1st, 1980 to September 20th, 2011. Maybe the 80s was when they officially entered the rule that you can't be gay in entering the military, but either way, it's very tragic that there are a lot of members of the military that just literally got shafted specifically because they were gay. But maybe with this information that we have now, we can fully understand the situation for the future. Like, people who know history are less likely to repeat it. But anyways, next story, we're getting a little fashy cat fight. So apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert got into a hissy fit. During one of the more recent House sessions, Lauren Boebert decided to introduce impeachment articles for Joe Biden. But in doing so, she also pushed for something special. I forget the term, but she basically made it so that she would force a vote on that bill later in the week. At least a procedural vote on the bill. So basically, she's moving her bill forward. And the problem is, Marjorie Taylor Greene has already introduced a bill about Biden and impeachment. And now, Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill is being overshadowed by Boebert's. And due to this, the two of them were getting into a huge argument. And apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene called Lauren Boebert a little bitch on the House floor. Now, I think this is really, really good for a number of reasons. And in order to show this contrast, let's compare them to the people that they've been compared to the most. Boebert and Greene are commonly sort of compared to AOC and the Squad, like how the Squad was compared to sort of like the people like Rand Paul or Justin Amash, like the Tea Party conservatives. These guys, like these girls, are now being compared to the Squad. Now, what's interesting is that, like, I mean, first of all, there's one thing I thought was very interesting. You see, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I thought she was going to be, like, what Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene are, I thought they reversed. Like, they would be reversed. Like, you see, Boebert is sort of more of the extreme ideological wing of the GOP. Like, she was the one who was with Matt Gaetz trying to push for that whole, like, Kevin McCarthy coup, I guess. Meanwhile, Marjorie Taylor Greene was of the more conciliatory route. I literally, honestly thought that those two would be swapped. But I guess that's sort of like where a comparison with them and the Squad are sort of, I guess, accepted, because Marjorie Taylor Greene is sort of like the far-right Nazi version of AOC. When they first entered Congress, they had like these big ambitions, these big ideas. They got like a bit angry. They got in the news. They ran in like super like deep colored districts. But then, of course, when push came to shove, now they're sort of being a bit more conciliatory. Now they're sort of like actually trying to legislate. Well, granted, they're legislating on different things. AOC wants healthcare. Marjorie Taylor Greene wants black people hanging in trees. But Boebert is sort of taking the more like radical route in that field, which makes sense because while AOC is sort of seen as the one that's more moderated and is the more like face of the movement, the lesser known people, well, quote unquote lesser known people like Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush, they're seen as still maintaining their more radical roots. But the one comparison that the squad and this like far right Nazi squad doesn't have is the fact of just this story. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert really hate each other. These two hate each other because they both want to be in the spotlight. They both want to be the one that people go to. That's because of the far right's addiction to authority, personality cults. While those two are going to be extremely hardcore and try to push the Donald Trump personality cult, they, at the end of the day, they want their own. But they know in the time being, in order to do that, they just have to kiss the foot of whoever's in charge now. But anyways, there's not much else to say on this story. I just think it's funny that those two are going to be busy fighting each other, and hopefully we'll be able to use this time to strike against them and push for actual progressive and leftist agendas that can actually benefit the American people. You know, like free healthcare, or making sure the environment doesn't collapse and kill everybody, or, hypothetically, raising the minimum wage. You know, things that people actually care about, and not the actual, like, fake issues that these guys want to push. Like, we need to impeach Joe Biden. For what? Like, literally for what? Anyways, next story is some local news. Okay, so a lawsuit alleges that NC House Speaker had affair, sex with people seeking political favor. So a detailed lawsuit filed by a former Apex City Councilman claims that North Carolina House Speaker Tim Moore started an affair with his wife and engaged in group sex with other people seeking political favor. Now, when that story broke, there were some people who were going around saying like, oh, this is it! This is the proof! This is the proof! Like saying that they were, like, it was proof that Madison Cawthorn was right, because the far right has this obsession with being right, even though they never are. Like, we see this every day. Like, on Twitter will sometimes trend, like, Alex Jones was right about everything. And the far right seems to keep saying, like, we were proven right on COVID. It's like, no, you weren't. Like, you guys were not proven right on anything. Like, they keep saying they were proven right on something, even though they weren't proven right on something. And, like, the reason why I say that Madison Cawthorn wasn't proven right on this is because Madison Cawthorn, from my recollection, like, the whole thing that he was saying about, like, sex parties was that it was, like, a House member who said it. Not Tim Moore. Although I find it ironic that Tim Moore did endorse Madison Cawthorn's primary opponent. So maybe he interpreted it as he was slighting him, even though he's like, wait, I actually have no idea about anything. Like, this wouldn't relate to me at all. But he was too short-sighted to see that. I don't know. I do think it's just funny and blatant. Like, conservatives like to do this. I mean, it's just funny just to seeing this whole debacle happen. I wonder if it'll ruin his career like it did Cal Cunningham's or John Edwards. You know, North Carolina seems to have this huge obsession with politicians that just love to, like, cheat on their wives. Although I think Tim Moore, he didn't cheat on his wife. It said, like, it was like the affair was with the wife, and it was like a group thing. So anyways, last story, again showing some form of hypocrisy. Justice Samuel Alito took luxury fishing vacation with GOP billionaire who later had cases before the court. In early July 2008, Samuel Alito stood on a riverbank in a remote corner of Alaska. The Supreme Court justice was on vacation at a luxury fishing lodge that charged more than $1,000 a day, and after catching a king salmon nearly the size of his leg, Alito posed for a picture. To his left, a man stood beaming, Paul Singer, a hedge fund billionaire who has repeatedly asked the Supreme Court to rule in favor of his high-stakes business disputes. So, again, the right-wing members of the court are just openly teaming up with business leaders, conservative business leaders, to get their legislation passed. See, now I'm starting to see the whole depoliticization of the court, even though I still broadly disagree with the argument of depoliticization of the court, because you can't depoliticize the court. You can departisan the court, but the court itself will always be political. I have a video about how you can't depoliticize the Supreme Court, and I'll probably link it here, or if it's not linked here, you can find it, Pluribus Unum, why depoliticizing the Supreme Court doesn't work. And I understand there's like, of course, like you can't remove the Supreme Court justice from everything. That's one of my arguments about like the whole depoliticization of the Supreme Court. Because like at the end of the day, you can't make it so that they don't have any sort of political bias or anything like that. You can't make it so that they don't have like obvious political affiliations. Like many of the like World War II justices, a lot of them were very close to FDR. Then a lot of them were also very critical of him. Like that's the whole point of like a Supreme Court like legislation. If they strike down a law, they're making it publicly known like what their stance is on an issue. Then I see the conservatives typing. Actually, they're there to prove whether or not something is constitutional or not. But people interpret the Constitution in different ways, dumbass. Again, many different judicial philosophies and such. And different political philosophies that lead them to those conclusions. But anyways, I guess that's all I have to say on that. So let's move on to the main topic of this video. Yes, this is going to be one of those other ones where it's like, oh, remembering my show throughout the years. And this is where I'm going to get into a very interesting concept. Canceled video ideas. In the 5 years up to this episode, I have made 414 videos on this YouTube channel. If you, of course, add the 160 that I made in the previous sort of like era of my online presence, that would be a grand total of 574 videos. Then, of course, you have to take into factor in a lot of other things like Twitter videos that I edited together and whatever else. But we're just going to stick with that. I have made a grand total of 547 videos. And this episode will be 575. And each episode has to go through many different processes. This is a part that I didn't get to in my How to Make Lefty Videos video. Every video starts off with an idea. Then you do whatever you need to do to like set it up. Like research if you need to for the EPU channel. Or just skip to the writing part if you're trying to do a more creative video. Then that's when you get into the parts that I did get into. Recording, editing, and uploading. And as we've seen, 414 videos made it past all those initial steps. However, there are a lot of videos that don't make it to that final step. That at one point during the process, I just decide that I don't want to continue the project or start the project. Like there are some videos that I have an idea for, and then I just think about it for a little bit more, and I'm like, I don't really like the topic that much, so then I don't pursue it. Maybe it's one that I actually start writing, but then I'm like, it's just not working. Like, and then maybe there's some that make it through multiple steps of the process, maybe recording or maybe beginning editing, and I'm just like, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. There's one infamous example where I literally quit halfway through making the episode 4 of my podcast. I guess that's a bonus one because, I guess it technically counts. I did cancel it in the middle of making it. But for this episode, I'm going to be going over some cancel video ideas that I have, done. Some of which you might be familiar with if you sub to me on Patreon, because sometimes if it makes it to the script writing process and then I don't pursue the video project any further, I will post the script on my Patreon for people to see. The scripts are usually not even complete, so it's not like I'm giving them information that would be useful to plagiarize or whatever. Now, here's the thing. There's also a certain other subsection of my videos that I haven't necessarily canceled, but are more in limbo. There are some videos that I have written, ready to go. All I just have to do is record, edit, blah, blah, blah. Then there are some that are sort of in a limbo process where it's I have them written, or I have them somewhat written, but it's just I haven't found the time to finish them. Then there are some that are in that process, but then I'm I just don't necessarily want to continue this project any further, and then I just cancel it. But there are some that are either still in the idea process or in the very early development of the script process that I haven't necessarily canceled, but might be canceled in the future. I don't know. You'll have to find out if those videos get made or not. And there are some videos that I have written that I just have not recorded at any point because I haven't really found the time and the slot for it. And there's also some that's maybe I will move forward with them, but then again, maybe I won't. There's one video I have, it's written, I don't want to give it away because it's still in the process of not being canceled, but it's ever since that happened, ever since I finished writing that one, more information came out about the subject, and as such, that episode's a little lackluster. And when I say lackluster, I mean a lot of the information is, due to this new information that came out, a lot of the information that is in that episode is just flat out wrong. But I don't know if I plan on canceling that episode and just leaving it at that, or maybe I just might go back and rewrite it. But if they are in this video, like if I talk about them in this video, then I'll be upfront and say there is a good chance that that means the video is never coming out. Like, it is never coming out. If you hear a subject here in this video that you genuinely liked, or you genuinely thought, oh, this would be an interesting topic, you know, you're free to do it if you want. But me personally, I basically just chosen, for whatever reason, to not do them. And of course, I have notes and stuff written for why I canceled the project, why I lost interest, or whatever else needs to be said. And to pad out the video, these aren't going to be episodes that are exclusively done about the EPU channel videos. You'll see what I mean in a second, but just know this isn't exclusively to the EPU channel. And I guess we'll start off with the video ideas that I had for the pre-Pluribus Unum stuff. I made a video about like all the other YouTube ideas that I've had up to that point, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. Like, I'm talking about like videos that I actually had planned that didn't come out. And of course, those, if you know the actual video channel that I managed to actually do, you know that means that it counts 3 shows: the Nintendork, the Fanfiction Connoisseur, and Boebert Killer. For Nintendork specifically, I actually was planning on making another episode of it on the game The Force Unleashed, because I just got it. And no, this wasn't that long ago. It's just because I just never got a version. A friend of mine lent me their copy from the Wii, because I had a Wii, I didn't have an Xbox and stuff. And after playing it, I wanted to give Nintendork the ability to, like, you know, do the whatever he does. I was still kind of figuring out what to do with him. Boebert Killer is the most interesting because I was actually, like, I was almost done with Boebert Killer. I was almost done, actually. Like, I mean, if you know the story, you know the story, but for those who don't, which is probably a lot of you, the show Boebert Killer was this like little short show. I should have probably explained what the Nintendork was. Nintendork was a parody / actual attempt of being like a AVGN irate gamer game dude type angry reviewer. But then he sort of transitioned to be like somewhat more like normal. But I never actually ended up figuring out what to do with that because I was like a stupid teenager that didn't really have like the ability to plan ahead. Boebert Killer was this short like online thing that I planned to, like, it was basically a joke because I made like an episode. Like, my first YouTube video ever was a video of Justin Bieber getting killed by Boebert Killer, this mysterious guy who killed Boebert Killer. Like, he killed the Biebers, but then it was discovered that there were clones of Justin Bieber. And then somehow I was like, maybe I would make a full show out of this. And I did. And the funny thing is, as I got older, I actually was better at writing and planning ahead for the videos. And it became more of a developing story. Twists and turns. Boebert Killer Season 1 was usually just a bunch of shorts that, like, it was originally planned to just be a bunch of shorts just telling the story of this Boebert Killer in, like, this disjointed manner. Sort of like the 2003 Clone Wars show, where it was basically just a bunch of shorts detailing what happened during the Clone War. But then, as the show developed, it became more of a Star Wars The Clone Wars, where I attempted to have more of like a bigger story for the show. And Season 2 was an improvement over Season 1. Episode lengths were longer, and everything else was fine. But then, when I started losing interest in the Boebert Killer, like when I started losing interest in that channel and wanted to transition to Pluribus Unum, I didn't necessarily want to end the videos as they were. But then, inevitably, a lot of things ended up getting in the way. But one thing I did end up, especially with Boebert Killer, because that was when I started thinking of ideas that were like, oh, this is actually interesting, where I was going to take the, at the time, current political climate of the United States, you know, like, basically, this was sort of like, I was trying to do this in like 2019, 2020, I think, where it was like there was this like rising fascist guy who was using the like Bieber war and was forming like this absolutely like hard right fascist political party. and was sort of like building momentum, and he would be the new enemy, the new villain of the season. And all the main characters would, of course, try to stop him, one through an election, but then, I think this must have been a little, like, later, like, maybe this part was after 2020, I don't remember when, but then, of course, like, I don't know how long this process was, but anyways, making the whole, like, animated, like, little, like, stick figure animations would be probably too much. So what I ended up doing instead was making that third season a webcomic. But the webcomic site that I used to do it, because I didn't draw it, I just used this thing called Pixton. It changed, like, almost immediately after I started, like, posting the webcomics. And I was just like, okay, then I guess that's it. And it was like, we were halfway through. We were about to get to the good episode, Like, they were on their way to, like, do this big epic fight. It wasn't the final episode, but it was, like, the halfway point of the show. And again, it was going to be really good. I actually am low-key kind of proud with the idea and the route that I took with that third season. Because I was giving more character development to, like, certain other people. Because, like, I mean, the original characters were, like celebrities, like, Justin Bieber, Paris Hilton, Antonio Banderas, 50 Cent, because those were, like, the celebrities in the, like, character, like, creator thing of, like, the draw cartoons app on my phone. But then I added some original characters to the show that I actually really liked. Gary, Lee, Johnny. They were each going in, like, different directions and interesting routes for their characters. Like, I mean, if this wasn't, like, a stupid thing about Justin Bieber, then it would have actually been an interesting story on its own. I guess it's something I kind of like about the internet, where it's like, you take this thing that's like this, like, thing that's like a parody of something, but then at the end of the day, it somehow becomes this bigger thing that nobody could ever believe. Like, Super Mario Glitchy 4 is a prime example. Started as, like, this stupid, like, oh, mods in, like, glitches in Super Mario 64, but then it somehow became something way bigger than that. But anyways, magnum opus of that channel, the Fanfiction Connoisseur. Basically, I had 2 finales planned for it. The final episode that I originally wanted to do was a review of the infamous fanfiction. I forgot to mention again what this show is for people who don't know. Fanfiction Connoisseur was my attempt at becoming an internet reviewer, like the Nostalgia Critic or whatever. And of course, he reviewed fanfictions, because those were the things that you couldn't copyright claim, because it was already a copyright infringement. And the infamous fanfiction My Immortal is basically this goth version of Harry Potter, where this girl wrote herself in as the main character of Harry Potter, and she, like, dating Harry and, like, Ron and all these other people. Draco. No, it was like Draco Malfoy was the good guy in that book, and that was basically, like, super hardcore edgy, like, goth girl type fanfiction. And it is infamously bad. I think it was revealed that it was a troll fic, basically meaning it was written intentionally to be bad, but it became very infamous on the internet. And no better way to end the show than with that. But then, of course, again, I lost interest in the channel, so I wouldn't really be able to do that. It wasn't actually necessarily intended to be the finale, it was intended to be like the 100th episode of the Fanfiction Connoisseur. And I guess the true ending would be the ending of the story arc that I put in, because every single reviewer is supposed to have a story arc. I mean, Linkara said so it must be true. And it was going to be this, like, it was going to be the quote-unquote Fanfiction Connoisseur movie, but I don't necessarily know if it would actually be a movie. I think it would have been, like, at most 30 minutes long. I don't want to give away too much away, because, I mean, I don't know. I mean, even though I said this probably won't happen, I might still make it. I might make it for, like, shits and giggles, whatever. Man, we spent a lot of time, and we're not even on, like, the Pluribus Unum stuff. So let's just get into the actual Pluribus Unum stuff. You see, these 3 are, like, subsections of what I wanted the channel to be originally. You see, if you know the story of Pluribus Unum, the idea behind the channel was going to be a little more broad. I had ideas for, like, not necessarily ideas, but, like, I wanted it to be, like, a bigger channel. I wanted it to be, like, the podcast and the main series videos were just 2 things on the channel. And there would be a lot more shows on the channel. One of the big canceled ones was song parodies, because Mr. B did song parodies. Well, not song parodies, but, like, he did music. So it was like, I will do it too. but I couldn't sing, I couldn't play an instrument, so that went on the back burner. I did have 3 songs written. We Didn't Start the Debate, which is a parody of the song We Didn't Start the Fire. The Ultimate Debate, which is a parody of The Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny. And both of those songs were supposed to be like just listing off candidates for the upcoming 2020 election and candidates for like previous elections. Now, as you know, I inevitably ended up doing a parody of The Ultimate Showdown anyways, with The Ultimate Theory of Multiple Tendencies. But there was one more song I had, and it was, again, glad I didn't do this, because this would make no sense. Really? It would literally have just been plagiarism. So, if you know the YouTuber Brentalfloss, then you know that who he is. But if you don't know who he is, he's a guy who makes video game song parodies. And one of his most ambitious, and arguably his best video, was his video on Ocarina of Time with lyrics. And it was like this big thing where it was like a debate between him and a friend of his, and they were talking about like the good and bad of Ocarina of Time. Well, basically, I was like, I want to do that. So then I took the song, and then I just rewrote some of the lyrics, and the whole point would be like, instead of a like Ocarina of Time fan and Ocarina of Time hater debating, it would be a Democrat and a Republican. Very tragic, dumb idea that really I'm glad I never ended up doing. But in case you're wondering, no, I don't regret that. I regret that I was going to probably publish that at one point, but my viewpoint is this. It's okay to rip people off if the ripping off doesn't actually end up becoming part of the product. Every good idea starts at one point as a ripoff of something else. Another early series idea I had was something called Everything Wrong with Politics. It was going to be a parody of the show Everything Wrong With, which is, if you don't know, it's basically a media critique show, and not really a critique, it's like nitpicking, and it's like, this film is bad, so we're going to give you a point for this thing. And one of their very infamous criticisms is like, this scene does not contain a lap dance. But then sometimes they'll also just, like, it's just literally just for fun, I guess. But then some people turn it into like actual media critiques. And I was going to do like every single political party, I was going to do like everything wrong with them, like everything wrong with and the only ones that I ended up writing were the Democrats, Republicans, and Libertarians. And for the Libertarians, I think I only just started writing that. But the last, I guess, really early on series that I had in mind was something called Why Did Blank Lose? Now, this is actually a good idea, but I just ended up not really following through with it. By all means, if you want to do it, go ahead. And basically, it would be, you would take a presidential candidate, like a losing presidential candidate, obviously, and then you would go over the reasons, like, why did they lose? The first and only episode that I actually thought about was Hillary Clinton, because it was like, at that point, I was like, so mad at Hillary, I wanted to like dunk on her some more. Like, why did she lose? But I did never really plan like doing more, and I was like, should I start with her and then go backwards, or just do whatever candidate I want to do whatever day? Whatever. But again, I ended up doing it. If you guys want to do it, by all means. But one of the big reasons why I ended up not doing it is because I just didn't find time for it. But now, in retrospect, I understand why it probably wasn't a good idea, because at the end of the day, I would be a heck of a lot biased in my reporting. Like, one of the big things I wanted to say was, like, Russiagate had absolutely nothing to do with Hillary Clinton's loss. When it's not true. It didn't have the sole reason of Hillary Clinton's loss, and it wasn't like, Putin clicked the Donald Trump win button. I did want to supplant it with at least like more like salient things, like maybe it would have been like a top 10 reasons, like why she lost. But inevitably it will end up being biased for everybody, because like, let's say a Republican makes that video, why did Donald Trump lose? They'll probably go, oh, cause the election was rigged against him. So it's like, clearly that'll be a very biased perspective for a series. But anyways, here's the next, it's a thing that I have done a little bit of on the channel, and in my very early on wanted it to be like a big part of the channel, but unfortunately it just hasn't happened that much, and you'll see why. It was going to be interviews. Like, I only have 5 interviews up on my channel. One with John Wolfe Jr., The second with John Wolfe Jr., the third with Ian Schlockman, the fourth with Senator McCurry, and the final interview with congressional candidate Hector Osagura. I have not looked back on any of those interviews ever since publishing them because, at the end of the day, I realize I'm not an interviewer. I'm not good at interviewing people. I'm barely good at speaking when it comes to the podcast in general, and I have notes with me right now. I always feel like I'm not really good at going with the flow in regards to the show. I want to get through the points that I have, but then also, I don't want to waste the time. I want to go through, that's the problem. For most of the interviews, I tried to, speed through the questions because I didn't want to waste their time. Even though it's of course, if they want the time to be spread, they would be the ones who would be spreading the time because they're the ones who are giving the answers. And I didn't even record, the intros with the guests. Most interviews, they they record an intro with the guest, but I didn't because it was just I just don't want to waste your time. I'm gonna get through it. They were fine with it. At most I got them going oh really, okay, but I inevitably was after those interviews I was basically I kind of don't want to do more interviews. I did plan on doing maybe a couple. I did reach out to more people, and one of the reasons that's the reason for personal reasons why I didn't do it. But the other reason is because I would consistently reach out to people sometimes for interviews, but I would just not really get that much feedback. Okay, so let's just go over all the people that I planned on interviewing. We'll actually start we're going in random order. So first we'll say the Gravel Institute, because the Gravel Institute, they literally said, hey, we want people to interview us. So then I just shot my shot and just said, hey, can I interview you? And then one of the Gravel teens subscribed to me on YouTube, and then I never heard it back from them. Guess that makes sense considering it was basically a scam all along. And I wasn't gonna actually it was gonna be interesting because it was gonna be a hard pressing interview. I was gonna fight back. It wasn't gonna be the first one. In fact, there are a lot of other people on this list that I would have given some form of pushback on the interviews. Mostly right-wing people, because I did actually have a couple of right-wing people that I did want to interview. Libertarian presidential candidate Kim Ruff, but the only reason that ended up happening is because she ghosted me a couple of times, and I would keep reaching out, and I would keep saying hey, and they'd be wait, none of our team got back to you? It's no. The most interesting one was Joey Salads, which I did plan to interview Joey Salads, infamous YouTube right-wing provocateur, and brief congressional candidate, and he was going to be the one I was going to push back against the hardest, but again, never ended up happening. Another congressional candidate that I thought about interviewing was Albert Lee, and I was actually going to give him some pushback too. He was a pretty good candidate, all things considered, but I was basically going to push back on why primary this person, because he was going to primary, he primaried Earl Blumenauer, and while Earl Blumenauer, nowhere near the best, member of Congress, he's definitely above average in regards to members of Congress. He was one of the first co-sponsors of the Green New Deal. When AOC was sending around the Green New Deal petition, Earl Blumenauer was one of the first people to sign it. But Albert Lee, he was basically he wasn't running against Earl Blumenauer on the things Earl Blumenauer was bad on. Albert Lee was saying Medicare for all and Green New Deal against Earl Blumenauer. As I said, Earl Blumenauer, earliest co-sponsor of Green New Deal, well, one of the earliest co-sponsors of Green New Deal, and yet you're going to primary him on the Green New Deal? Now, these two were sort of people that I planned to be the final interview. After everything said and done, one of these two was going to be the final one that I would do. The first one was Princess Blanding, the Virginia gubernatorial candidate of a third party. I reached out to her campaign, and they never got back to me. Understandable, I guess. There were probably a lot of people asking, but, whatever. And Matt Ho, even though apparently I made Matt Ho laugh because of my endorsement of him, I did try to reach out to him in DMs and an email to do a formal interview, but, again, nothing came of it. But this last section of people who I plan to interview are the ones that I am genuinely the most mad at. First, we'll start with Elijah Manley. Because me and Elijah were 100% set to do an interview. We had a time. I was ready. I got the mic. I got the phone out. Whatever. I was ready. It was literally about time to interview. The time happens. I send him a message after like 5 minutes, asking like, hey, what's up? He says, oh, give me a second. I gotta like finish up this call. He then ghosts me for 2 hours. And by that time that, like, I was like supposed to like do this interview real quick. I was on a specific timetable. Like, I specifically scheduled that point for that interview because I knew I would be 100% free at that moment. Then, after the allotted time passed, I had to leave to go do something else. Then Elijah Manley came back, said, hey, I'm ready for the interview now. And I was like, dude, I'm literally going to be busy for the rest of the day. And then he never came back to me for like any other follow-up. Still genuinely mad at that. Like, just the blatant disrespect on Elijah Manley's part. The absolute blatant disrespect. Like, I mean, Elijah Manley, like, I don't care about any of his campaigns. He like continued to like DM me and stuff for like future things. Like, dude, why are you DMing me? I don't care. I don't give a fuck that you formally endorsed Bernie Sanders after Howie Hawkins kicked your ass into the Socialist Party primaries. I don't care. I don't care about that. But even though I am very mad at how Elijah did me, there's another person that did me probably worse than Elijah. Darcy fucking Richardson. He was literally the first person I reached out to do an interview with. He gave me a time and a date, and we were ready to go. Nothing. I send him an email, whatever, nothing again. He doesn't get back to me at any point until he then announces that he's going to be running for the Reform Party presidential candidacy and announce his presidential campaign on my show. I go, great, whatever. Nothing. I think he reached out to me a couple more times for interviews. And then at one point he even said, like, I want to hold a debate with you because he said some blatantly misinformation in regards to certain things. Like, he said that six-time Socialist Party presidential candidate Norman Thomas, if he were alive today, he would be a diehard member of the Libertarian Party. And when I pointed out how blatantly wrong that was, he demanded he was like, I want a debate, but I don't want it to be done, like, recorded and then edited. What I want is a debate that will be streamed live. It's like, dude, have you never heard of a fucking debate, bro? That is literally how debates are done. Like, again, blatant disrespect on Darcy's part. I do not understand. I don't care about Darcy Richardson anymore. But either way, whatever. He also promised me a Amazon Kindle version of his book. And I specifically got Amazon Kindle to ask him for that book. And he never gave it to me. Again, blatant disrespect. Anyways, the next video idea that was sort of planned out, it was actually planned out for me, sort of. And it was the idea of having a potential Green Party presidential debate. You see, Sedden Curry, after we did the interview, she sort of like remained in somewhat formal contact with me for a bit. And at one point she wanted to, because she was really mad about how the Howie Hawkins campaign was sort of unfairly treating how the Green Party was unfairly treating certain candidates in favor of Howie Hawkins. And one of the things that she wanted was more debates. And I was one of the people in the media strategy group, apparently, that she was floating as a potential, like, she wanted me to host a presidential debate with the Green Party. And I did genuinely consider doing it. And I did even write up questions for it. It ended up not panning out because, I was afraid that, like, it wouldn't be good because my internet would probably not be good to handle a debate. And I was genuinely a bit, like, nervous about that, like, too much pressure. And I was like, I told Sedden this at one point. I was like, yeah, this is a little too much pressure. She's like, oh, okay, no problem. The next canceled video idea, a thoughts on Alex Jones. We've talked about this before. I just planned at one point randomly, like, hey, I'll do a thoughts on Alex Jones. And then I made a thumbnail for it. But then at one point, apparently, it got canceled. And I just, like, had it in my head that I did a video on Alex Jones. So then I just never did one. And then I just decided, I'm not going to do it anyways. What's the point? But anyways, another one that this is going to be like a slight subsection, because these ones aren't going to be videos that I wanted to do. These were going to be like appearances outside of my channel. Okay, so first was going to be a discussion with Marie Fonseca. So for those of you who don't know who Marie Fonseca is, she was one of those quote-unquote dumb left types. She was like obsessive of Jimmy Dore, and then she became like this super far-right person apparently, you know, denying COVID vaccines, and then like saying that January 6th was a good thing. And like she said, quote, "I am rooting for the Capitol Hill rioters right now." But she was like an associate of an associate. She was buddy-buddy with this user called Eclectic Radical, who I used to be like somewhat associated with through a mutual of ours, Niall Elcom. But then Chris Richards, he is what I call useful idiot in regards to the dumb left, because he claims like he hates Jimmy Dore. He hates like the right-wing factions of the left, quote-unquote. He hates the Dorite faction, but then will run to them for basically every and all other analysis. He basically says everything that they say, but also, I don't like Jimmy Dore. And nowhere was that more evident with his association with Marie Fonseca, because she would literally say stuff about COVID and Jimmy Dore, super blatantly like right-wing things, and then Chris Richards would get mad at people who would call her out. And it's 100% because that he wanted to fuck her. And I mean, Chris Richards, he literally has had accusations against him for being like a sexual pest in DM groups. And literally, go to his replies. You'll be able to find any and all associations with like any female that he is an associate with. He like gets really horny about this, and it's like, dude, you're a 50-year-old man, calm down. These women are like literally 20s, calm down. And the thing was, I was gonna do it. I was 100% doing it. I was like, literally, I was there waiting. It was like it's supposed to be an election night special, and me and Marie have frequently like clashed on Twitter. And I was like, I wanted to be there because I wanted to call her out on certain things to her face. But the problem was, my internet just wasn't my friend that day. And every time I tried to get on, it would be like, I would cut out. I would not be able to get in properly. I wouldn't be able to hear them. It just was not really that good. And then I kind of got embarrassed, so I just decided to leave altogether. And I was just like, I didn't even watch the show. But I didn't watch the show after the fact, and after seeing that show, I was like, oh boy, I really wish I was there. Because she said so many blatantly, like, right-wing things, and Chris said some blatantly wrong information. It was just like, I so wish I was there. I wanted to call them out so bad to their faces. But whatever. That ended up not happening. Another thing that ended up nearly happening was a debate with Hunter Avallone. Now, this is an interesting story. So, Hunter Avallone, for those who don't know, former conservative creator, became a liberal, but still holds some pretty right-wing beliefs. And one of the big ones is that he really likes Kyle Rittenhouse and defends Kyle Rittenhouse 100%. So then I called him out on Twitter for his defense of Kyle Rittenhouse, and then he was like really, really in the like debate bro mood, and it was just like, no, I have a thing to do this day. I did think about it. Legitimately, because it was earlier in the day, so I could have technically done it, but it was just like, I even wrote down like arguments and like explaining like what the whatever would be, but I was just like, I just don't necessarily think that I'm the right person to do this debate. So then I didn't do it. And then thankfully that interaction was good, because I learned that Hunter Avallone was stupid and an idiot, because it's like, inevitably you figured out the debate bro isn't good. Like, when you're sitting down and watching the debate bro or the call out streamer like doing it to someone else, they're like, ah, ha, ha, ha. But when they do it to you, all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, no. And it showed me the flaws in how the content and stuff is. And the last thing that was going to be on someone else's channel that was actually like fully planned out, kind of, would be an interview to call out a user that I have a very bad association with, Disco Brian. So what happened was, Disco Brian was this extremely like weird like liberal creator who was in a DM group that I was in, and I never liked him, but he got really obsessive with me, and then I was like, dude, I don't like you. Leave me alone. You're gay. I didn't say that last one, but whatever. Like, I was basically never nice to him at all. I called him out frequently, But he gave me money, and he kept basically like sucking my D everywhere he went. Okay, so maybe that was a bit more apt. But like inevitably he got on everybody's nerves, everybody hated him. And then, inevitably, at one point, I guess he just crossed a bridge too far for everyone else. Because I never liked him day one. So when everyone else started being like, I don't like him anymore, it's like, cool, great. I literally even made a choice at one point where I just asked the guy who was in charge of the DM group, like, dude, me or him? And then they chose me. But one user, that was a former associate of mine, they're still technically following me, but I unfollowed them. I don't really give a crap about their content anymore. Because of this interaction, because of this and this association. Andrea Ravinsky, Pogs for Bernie, Cyberdemon 531, she really likes Brian, apparently, and defends him on a lot of the bad stuff that he does. And he's done a lot of bad things. He's frequently harassed women of color. He's frequently harassed women in general. He has made very, very weird videos and comments that, very suspect because I'll just say, they involve children. One of the biggest things that was the very big suspect was that there was this video that he released that got taken down by YouTube because it was apparently reported as like being very sexual content that involved minors. Because the video in question was like, he posted these weird like stupid like edited videos, and the video in question was like, he edited Ted Cruz's face during the Ketanji Brown Jackson hearings over a fat-like man talking about a certain type of pornography involving people who should not be in that. And it was like, it's supposed to be like a joke, like, oh, he's like really creepy in regards to like children. But then for some fucking insane reason that has no bearing on anything, he decides to include literal children in the video. And this is combined with a lot of other things that he's done. Like, he's defended many sexual assaulters and rapists. Apparently, one thing that he also did was that he had like a family member who was like pro-Trump, and they had a child. And then, in the comment section of the Facebook post of that child, he says that he wanted to make a point about how Donald Trump is very bad to women. So then he apparently types to this comment with a photo of a baby in it, some of the Donald Trump locker room talk, apparently unprompted. Like, it wasn't like Trump related, but it was just like he just said the very infamous line from that section, sent it to a photo of a baby, and makes like weird comments about how Josh Hawley's child is cute. And of course, like, I'm gonna call him out on this. Why would I not call him out on this? But despite this, she still loved Brian. I think she still loves Brian to this day. And she, like, brought Brian on to do, like, an interview. And I was gonna call him out during the interview as well. I was gonna be in the chat and, like, debunking all of the wrong information that he said, which he said a lot of wrong information. And one of the things that he said was blatantly false information about me, claiming that I was banned from Patreon due to harassment, when he was banned from my Patreon for harassing me. And then Andrea said, anybody who wants to come on the show to debunk the information that Brian said, bring up their own arguments or whatever, I'll do it. And I said, point blank, get me on the show. I will show, I want to say all the wrong information that he said. Like, I want to point out all the wrong information he said. And it wasn't just going to be the stuff about me. I wanted to talk about a lot of other things. Like, there was one very weird thing where it was like, he talked about a song called We're Not Marching Anymore, and he interpreted the song completely out of left field. Like, he interpreted the song as the person breaking away from the marching protesters of the 70s, when the song is literally supposed to be about, like, a soldier refusing to march into war, very much aligning with the protesters in the 60s. Like, this makes no sense. Like, he just says blatantly wrong information. And then Andrea, the host of the show, said, okay, and then never followed up with, like, anything. She never followed up with, like, here's the day we're going to do it, or anything of the sort. And I kept messaging her again, like, when are we going to do this? Let me know. I could do it, like, this week, this day, on this day. I can do next week, this day, this day, this day. I can do the weekend, but we'd have to do it in a late night. But then she never reached out to me for the date. That statement can also be used to describe my love life. But again, like, I never got anything back. And then she still associates with Brian. And I was just like, okay, fine then. And she was like, she even said, like, when do you want to come on? It's like, it's your show. You're supposed to let the guests know when they... Whatever, let's just move on to the videos that are, like, better. Like, actual, like, video ideas that I had. Like, main series videos, I guess. Okay, first, Black Panther Party. As this wasn't a formal political party, it was hard to make a party history video on the Black Panther Party. Maybe I might do one in the future, but more than likely not because, again, party history videos are more for like formal political parties. Meanwhile, the Black Panther Party was more of like a advocacy group. And also, it's probably best to not give that subject to me. It's probably best to give this to like Black liberation like creators. The next video, neocons versus paleocons. This might be tragic to someone because this was actually a request that I never ended up doing. I did plan on doing this video anyways, but it was like a person also requested it. I'm like, this is actually like more interesting, and it pushed me to like want to do it even more. But inevitably, it's like I made a video on neoconservatism. I made a video on paleoconservatism. Literally, all you need to do the compare and contrast is watch both of those videos. The next video idea I had is the anarchist rainbow. Now, this was supposed to be a video about me talking about all of the different forms of anarchism, or at least all the biggest forms of anarchism, but I did want to plan to go over all the forms of anarchism. Now, I even like the name, like the anarchist rainbow. Like the whole point was that it was going to be the thumbnail was going to be like a flag, but it was going to be like all of the anarcho flags. But ultimately, the reason why is that I never ended up finding a time to like fully write it. Plus, having all of these anarchist ideologies on the back burner could give me a good chance to like find a video if I need to find a slot to fill. A similar thing happened to the video All Kinds of Communism, where I wanted to make one video talking about all the different variations of communism, you know, just to show people that communism isn't like this monolithic ideology that many people think it is. Similar situation to the anarchist video. Simply put, never ended up finding the time, and it's better to just have all those ideologies on the back burner in case I need a video slot, so it's like, okay, I'll just make the video on De Leonism, whatever. Okay, the next one were the first couple of politics and media videos that I had. First, V for Vendetta. I wanted to do an episode on V for Vendetta, the movie, not the comic. And to be blunt, the V for Vendetta subject has kind of been overdone and is kind of bland. I've only seen the movie, I haven't read the comic book, and it's like, I don't think I can really go that much in depth. Like, after reading the episode many times, I'm like, yeah, honestly, this is kind of like a disservice to like people who actually like care about V for Vendetta a lot. And I sort of dismissed Alan Moore's criticisms like immediately because I've only seen the movie. But maybe if I actually had read the comic, then maybe I would understand his critiques. And, you know, maybe I will. Like, maybe I'll do an episode where I talk about V for Vendetta comparing the comic and the movie. But that would be a bit different than the actual original idea I had, which would just be, like, me talking about the politics in the V for Vendetta movie. The next one was I was going to make a politics and media episode on the hit show South Park. To be honest, pretty overdone topic. I really had nothing else to add that was new. Plus, I probably won't make it in the future because I've kind of lost interest in South Park, honestly. I haven't seen, like, their latest season. Like, I saw their, like, Cupid Yee episode, but I was like, I kind of don't really have that much interest in watching, like, South Park consistently anymore. It's like The Simpsons or Family Guy at this point. Like, I mean, many people like to do the thing where it's like, oh yeah, but, like, South Park is still, like, sort of new and fresh, but it's like, yeah, maybe it's newer and fresher than The Simpsons or Family Guy, but it is definitely getting to that point where it's like, maybe it's overstaying its welcome. And I was being, like, fair. Like, I actually liked the, like, Donald Trump seasons, but it's also, like, sadly, another thing that might be making me lose interest in South Park is because of the fact that originally what South Park was, it was, like, over-the-top extremes, but at this point, Now, that is just reality. Like the QAnon stuff, it's like, that would be something that would be in a South Park episode originally, like, just a joke. But then lo and behold, like, no, it's real. South Park doesn't have anything else to add about QAnon, because it's like, what else is there? The next one is, sports have always been political. Honestly, topic bored me. A lot of it was already done. Like, I talked about the very infamous Black Power, like, Olympics thing. No new ground is made. Nothing new to add. It was kind of a bland topic, honestly. Now, this next video idea is like a video idea that is actually kind of cool, but inevitably, it just kind of like didn't fulfill the niche that I needed. The video was titled "The Internet's Presidential Candidates." And the whole point of that video was me going over all of the elections that the internet had been a part of. And what I did was that I would try to find the candidate that is best defined as the internet's candidate for that election. Like, who had the biggest online presence, who was raising the most money on the internet, and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And one of the big things that was noticeable in the video was that the trend is that the anti-establishment candidates are always the ones that do the best online. Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, Andrew Yang, Howard Dean. But then a better video idea sort of swallowed this idea. And I won't give away what it is. There's someone who knows what it is. And a little other hint is that another video that got canceled due to this project is my video that I was going to talk about the alt-right in. Anyways, these next two videos that are canceled are videos that are just... The reason why they're canceled is funny. The videos in question that were canceled were What is Georgism? And the top 10 candidates who should have been president. And the reason why those videos got canceled is because Mr. Beat stole the ideas from me. Now, before you get mad, I'm not saying he actually stole the ideas from me. Like, I'm not saying that he, like, literally... Like, I didn't tell him about either of these ideas. I didn't tell him either of these ideas, and he didn't steal them. It just so happens that both of us came to the subjects together. We both came up with the same ideas. The latter of the episodes was actually supposed to lead in to my William Jennings Bryan video, and that probably gives away who number one on that list is. Now, technically, I could have still done both of those videos, but of course, I would have probably been called I would have been called a Mr. Beat ripoff. Even though the videos aren't one-to-one, like, his Georgism video is different than sort of the script that I had. But to be fair, I didn't have I don't think I had a full script. Maybe I did. Maybe it's on the Patreon, I think. Maybe. I don't know. But it was sort of like the other, like, politics, like, what is this political ideology history video, where I included some worldwide parties because Georgism did spread to other areas of the world. I don't know if he covered that in his video. And I had a different top 10 list than his, but the top 10 list did have a lot of overlap, to be fair. But that's because his ideology is a bit more, like, amorphous in sort of, like, who he considers, like, good political people. Like, some of the people that he included on the list is literally just because, like, this person was pretty cool, so they should have been president at this point. Not really anything indicative of their policies or anything of the sort, just, like, he just has a general vibe that they're cool. Meanwhile, all of mine were basically exclusively policy-oriented, and, like, a little bit of, I don't want the other person to win. This next one is a very interesting video. A video talking about the longest filibusters in United States Senate history. To be frank, I don't know why I canceled this video. It's a pretty okay video. I guess the topic just kind of bored me and I just wanted to do other things instead. And then I kept pushing it back. But then I was just like, if I keep pushing it back, it's like, what's the point? So I just decided to cancel it. But I mean, hey, if you guys want to do that video again, be my guest. The next video idea that I had that was also kind of interesting, the 10 American cults of personality. Similarly, I was bored and just kind of lost interest in this topic. I thought about it, but I don't know. Never got the oomph to go past Huey Long on the list, the only person who wasn't a president. And yes, like, Huey Long's the only American politician that is not a president that I can say, and I think a lot of people can say definitively, has a cult of personality. U.S. presidents also have a huge cult of personality. Like, I mean, we all know what the 10 cults of a personality in America are. I think I only got to 9. I didn't get to find the 10th one. But it was just a way to show, like, America also has sort of these kinds of faults. Okay, so these next two videos were sort of like bigger video ideas that I had, but both of them I ended up canceling for different reasons. The first one's going to be obvious. The Twitter PDF file expose. Now, in case you haven't pieced it together, I'm not actually trying to expose PDF files. I'm trying to expose something else, because I was like, I mean, the Instagram story just like released. Like, there was like this thing about like how social media sites, like YouTube had this problem before. Instagram's currently having this problem now. Twitter had this problem at one point, where a lot of this content, like, you don't have to go to the dark web to find like some bad stuff. Like, sometimes it's just sadly out there in the open and people find it. Like, I mean, again, like the Matt Watson expose of YouTube that led to like the second or third apocalypse. Like, there's this video that I saw of this woman where she was like calling out a Twitter hashtag that was getting popular, and it was a hashtag. I don't even want to say the hashtag because like this is like terrible and gross, but it was an acronym that meant very bad things. The next of these like two big things that I had, I'm actually going to save this for last because I think this one is the most interesting idea that I had that ultimately didn't pan out. But next we're going to talk about the Tomorrow's Pioneers video. It's again available on my Patreon, where I basically like I recorded it and it was ready to be edited, but unfortunately subject matter of the video and lack of interest made me kind of pull the plug. I was just like, I don't want to talk about like terrorism and stuff. I really don't. I don't want to talk about it. That's why I've like stopped talking about like mass shootings on this channel for like news stories on like the podcast, because it's like, I mean, it's sad. It's depressing. Why would I want to keep talking about that? So I didn't want to talk about like stuff like anti-Semitism, terrorism, or whatever. Especially considering that one might be a huge risk for like many different reasons. But whatever. It's like someone else can make it. There's like this huge video essay about like Tomorrow's Pioneers that you can watch instead. Anyways, the next one, more lighthearted, is American athletes turned politicians. I was bored with the topic because I'm not really a fan of sports. And it stinks because I actually had a very good joke for the episode that ultimately never ended up getting used. And at this point, you can't use it anymore because it literally had to come out at that time to work as a joke. But for your viewing pleasure, I'm going to recreate the joke right now. Here's the section in question. First, we'll start off with some local representation with Heath Shuler. Shuler was a former NFL quarterbacker for the Washington New Orleans Saints and the Oakland Raiders before serving in NC-11 in Congress from 2007 to 2011. Get it? The joke is that I was going to say the team when it was originally made, but then it got changed to the name of the team at the time. And one more thing that is actually kind of depressing about this one is that it wasn't until too late that I realized I could have made it like a fun episode, like a fun Patreon perk, because I recorded the episode, but then I decided to cancel it, and then I decided to delete the episode and then clear the trash can. And it wasn't until later that I realized, wait, I could have made this a Patreon perk where I posted this lost video of mine. So then I went back, but then, like, recycling can was like empty. Ergo, it's over. It's completely gone. That episode that I recorded is completely gone, and it's lost media that sadly we're never gonna see again. It's over. It's kaput. And it stinks again, because like that would have been a cool Patreon perk. But luckily the Tomorrow's Pioneers thing makes up for it. But the biggest canceled video project that I have is something that's way more than just a video project. Let me explain. Like, this is something I genuinely was still thinking about doing up until this point, but then I decided, yeah, for many reasons, I just can't do this. And we'll get into that as I explain. So, the idea that I had would be that I would make another channel. And the other channel, I would basically do the exact same thing that I'm doing on this channel, but with a twist. Instead of coming at it from my political perspective, I would come at it from a conservative angle. Maybe mimic myself like shifting a little bit further right. Like maybe like at the beginning it's just like, oh, I'm just your typical conservative. But then transition into being like a bit more like a right-wing populist type figure, and then post videos on that channel doing that kind of stuff for 1 whole year, I would probably have to remain focused on like main series videos. Like, I wouldn't do podcasts, and the point was I wasn't gonna use my voice. I was gonna hide my voice. I was gonna use something else. Like maybe I would have had someone else record the lines or whatever else. Then at the end of the year, I would make a video both on this channel and on that channel with a different title on both channels. The one that would be on this channel would say, I spent a year as a conservative pundit. And on the other one, saying, you were duped. Then I would go over, like, the whole experiment. And the whole point was I was supposed to see, like, would I get more fame if I was doing all this as a conservative? And I do believe that I would have done that. I would have gotten famous if I had done it from a conservative angle. But for many, many reasons, I decided not to do it. First, in order to not make anybody suspicious, I would have to do this and the Pluribus Unum channel. That would be a bit too much work, honestly. 2, it would be very irresponsible for me to make conservative content in the political climate that we have today. 3, conservatives are fucking stupid. Even if I tell them point blank, I am fake, I was lying to you this whole time, I was never a conservative, they would then go, oh, this guy turned woke. He became, like, he submitted to the woke mob or whatever. Because, like, one of the big things is Stephen Colbert. Like, conservatives believe that Stephen Colbert was a conservative until he joined The Late Show. They truly believed he was a conservative. Like, I had a huge Trump supporter, like not friend, but he was like an associate in school, like a student, a classmate, who loved the Colbert Report. And I was like, dude, he's making fun of you. He's literally making fun of people like you. 3, this would probably open the door to harassment to me and other people that I might associate with. And 4, the biggest one that kind of that was the catalyst of me not wanting to do it. Very simple. In order to do this and have a clean conscience, I would have to delete the entire fake channel at the end of the year. I can't do an unus annus, just spend a whole year doing something only for it to disappear. I really cannot do that. That's why I hate the fact that I have interviews and that thing that I have. That's why I'm mad about lost media of mine that's just gone. I don't want that to be gone. I want all the information, all the stuff that I've done to be readily available for people to access. I believe that information should be available for people to access at any point. So yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say on this topic. Hopefully this video was very interesting and you liked it. Again, if any of the other concepts in this video are interesting to you, feel free to do it yourself. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to our website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or consider supporting me on Patreon.